Let us delve into one of the most intriguing and controversial stories in human history, the betrayal of Judas Iscariot. In this web documentary, we will explore the fascinating details behind this act that profoundly marked the history and faith of millions. Through a careful and impartial approach, we will unravel the motives, circumstances, and consequences of this action that shook the foundations of Christianity. Be prepared to be surprised and have your understanding of this episode transformed by the surprising revelations and historical facts that will be presented. Judas Iscariot, one of the 12 disciples of Jesus Christ, is an iconic and controversial figure in the history of Christianity. His decision to betray his master for 30 pieces of silver is one of the most significant and debated events in the Bible. To better understand this action, it is necessary to explore the historical context and the possible motivations that led Judas to commit such a betrayal. In this second part, we will analyze the different interpretations and theories that attempt to explain what might have led Judas to make this fateful decision. From financial and political issues to personal and spiritual conflicts, each perspective sheds new light on this enigma that has intrigued scholars and believers for centuries. Prepare to delve into a deep and detailed analysis of this crucial moment in Christian history. One of the most widely discussed theories about Judas's motivation is the financial question. Some scholars believe that Judas, as the treasurer of the group of disciples, may have been tempted by money and betrayed Jesus in search of personal gain. After all, 30 pieces of silver, although not an exorbitant amount, still represented a significant reward at the time. This interpretation suggests that Judas may have felt dissatisfied with Jesus' simple and self-denying lifestyle, longing for a position of greater power and wealth. Perhaps he expected that by betraying his master, he could benefit in some way, either through a monetary reward or social advancement. This view portrays Judas as a man driven by greed and the desire for enrichment, calling into question his loyalty and faith. Another perspective on Judas's betrayal involves political and ideological issues. Some scholars argue that Judas, like other disciples, had expectations that Jesus would become a political leader and liberate the Jewish people from Roman domination. When he realized that Jesus' plans were of a spiritual nature and did not involve an armed revolution, Judas may have felt disappointed and betrayed. In this interpretation, Judas may have handed Jesus over to the Roman authorities in the hope of forcing him to assume a political and military leadership role capable of liberating Israel from foreign rule. This view portrays Judas as a man frustrated with Jesus' peaceful approach and willing to take drastic measures to achieve his political goals. This theory sheds new light on Judas's motivations, suggesting that his betrayal may have been a frustrated attempt to fulfill his own expectations about the Messiah. In addition to financial and political issues, some theories also explore the possibility that personal and spiritual conflicts may have influenced Judas's decision. Some scholars suggest that Judas may have felt excluded or undervalued within the group of disciples, which could have generated resentment and distrust towards Jesus. This interpretation proposes that Judas, driven by feelings of rejection and envy, may have betrayed his master as a way to seek revenge or to draw attention to himself. This view portrays Judas as a man tormented by his own insecurities and emotions, unable to cope with the proximity and authority of Jesus. Another aspect of this theory suggests that Judas may have been tempted by the devil, losing his faith and succumbing to malign influence. This perspective attributes the betrayal to spiritual forces that may have corrupted the disciple, deceiving him and leading him to commit such a horrific act. Regardless of the theories about Judas's motivations, it is undeniable that his betrayal had devastating consequences. The biblical account describes the anguish and remorse that Judas felt after handing over Jesus, leading him to hang himself in despair. This tragic action symbolizes the weight of guilt and pain that Judas carried for the rest of his life. But the consequences of Judas's betrayal were not limited to him alone. His act triggered a series of events that transformed the history of humanity. The crucifixion of Jesus, followed by his resurrection, gave rise to Christianity and profoundly influenced the faith of billions of people throughout the centuries. Therefore, Judas's betrayal, although a reprehensible act, became a fundamental element in the Christian narrative, serving as a turning point that led to the salvation of humanity. This duality between the condemnable act and its transformative consequences is one of the most intriguing aspects of this story. In addition to the religious implications, Judas Iscariot's betrayal has also had a lasting impact on culture and art. Over the centuries, the figure of Judas Iscariot has been portrayed in various ways, from grim and condemnable representations to more complex and nuanced interpretations. In literature, Judas has been the subject of masterpieces such as The Gospel According to Jesus Christ by José Saramago and The Last Temptation of Christ by Nikos Kazantzakis. In these works, the authors explore the humanity of Judas, presenting him as a tormented character, driven by doubts and internal conflicts. In the visual arts, Judas has also been the subject of numerous representations, from the famous paintings of the Last Supper to sculptures and engravings that seek to capture the complexity of his figure. These works of art reflect the fascination and controversy surrounding Judas's betrayal, challenging viewers to rethink their own perceptions of this character. Despite his betrayal, Judas Iscariot remains an enigmatic and controversial figure, continuing to inspire debates and reflections among scholars, artists, and believers. His action, although condemnable, is seen by some as a fundamental piece in the divine plan, necessary for the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus to occur. This more nuanced view of Judas suggests that his betrayal, although terrible, may have been a predestined act, fulfilling a greater purpose in the history of salvation. This interpretation invites readers to reflect on the nature of free will, destiny, and individual responsibility in the face of such deeply impactful acts. As we explore the different perspectives on Judas's betrayal, we are confronted with the complexity of human nature, with its conflicts, weaknesses, and potential for both good and evil. This story reminds us that, even in the face of condemnable acts, it is important to maintain an open mind and seek to understand the motivations and circumstances that lead people to make such drastic decisions. In this web documentary, we have delved into one of the most intriguing and controversial stories in human history, the betrayal of Judas Iscariot. Throughout this journey, we have explored the various theories and interpretations that attempt to explain Judas's motivations, from financial and political issues to personal and spiritual conflicts. We have seen how this tragic action, although condemnable, had profound and transformative consequences, giving rise to Christianity and influencing the faith of billions of people. Moreover, the figure of Judas has been widely portrayed in art and literature, reflecting the fascination and controversy that surround him. At the end of this exploration, we are confronted with the complexity of human nature and the need to maintain an open mind when analyzing such impactful acts. Judas's betrayal reminds us that even in the face of terrible choices, it is important to seek to understand the motivations and circumstances that lead people to make such drastic decisions. This story invites us to reflect on themes such as free will, destiny, and individual responsibility, challenging us to rethink our own perceptions about humanity and faith. We hope that this web documentary has shed new light on this fascinating and controversial episode in Christian history.